Okay, this is our fourth lecture on how to live a happier life. Unfortunately, I'm on vacation, so I'm taking it on this paddleboard. Fortunately, there's a lot of water metaphors, so we can kind of get away with it. So basically, today's concept is introducing you to your real self. In the Western society, we think that we're very analytical and we're thinking and we're always caught in our own thoughts and caught up in an ego. And everybody says they want to ditch their ego or don't be so egotistical, but nobody really talks about what we truly are as a person. And there's really no word for it in the West. It's kind of an observing self is what I would put a word on it. It's the part of your brain that's not thinking, that's not labeling, that's just observing and experiencing. And this part of the mind can actually not be thought about. So in order to experience it, you have to go through some exercises with me. The first, most classic exercise we're gonna go through is breathing and watching the breath. You breathe in slowly all the way to your stomach, slowly out through your nose. You do that a couple times, then when you're comfortable with it, you can also breathe out of your mouth as well. This is a classical beginner's meditation technique. A lot of the concepts in this lecture are stolen from meditation or a book called The Happiness Trap. Each week we're obviously trying to highlight different philosophers and psychologists who give us tips to live a happier life. So if you would, for about 10 deep breaths, breathe in, observing your breath. So breathe in all the way to your stomach for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then slowly out your nose. And thoughts are going to cross your mind. That's okay. You can slightly nod at them, acknowledge them, just don't get too tied to them. And whenever you get distracted, come back to your breath. Close your eyes, deeply breathe all the way to your stomach, slowly out of your nose. And what you're gonna see is when you're doing this, a lot of thoughts will occasionally hook you and take you on a little journey. And when that happens, just come back to your breath and unhook yourself. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to try it. Breathing in deeply all the way to our stomach, breathing out slowly through our nose. As the thoughts come, just let them float through your mind like a cloud. If you find yourself caught up in the thought, detach back to your breath. What does it feel like? Where is it going through your nostrils? How long does it take you to breathe in and out? Focus completely on your breath. What does it feel like when your stomach raises against your rib cage? Okay, so now that exercise is over, you can do that for a much longer period of time. But what you instantly start to realize is you're not all these thoughts racing through your head that create the ego and the concept of you. These thoughts arise spontaneously without you asking them to, and they float across your mind. And you can't be controlled by them. That's being controlled by the ego. Now the observing self that actually experiences and that watch those thoughts, that's what you truly are as a person. And as you start to strive towards a higher sense of being and self, you want to lose yourself more and more into that experiential part of mind that's been with you since you were a child. You've always had the ability to experience and observe, but you haven't always been, a lawyer, a doctor, this and that. If you think about yourself at 7, and then yourself at 14, 21, 30, so many things and facts changed about your life, and you still felt like you were the person you are. And that's because you're truly that experiential, observing function in your mind. You're not all the thoughts and concepts and ego construction. So the good news too is when you're lost in that observing self, you'll start to realize that a joy starts to overfill your life. And that's because either you believe that an intelligent person designed this world perfectly for us, or if you're a scientist, our body completely perfectly formed through evolution to exist in this world. We breathe and air comes in and fills our lungs. We get thirsty and we reach down and drink water. We get hungry, we walk through the forest, and things that are edible just grow on trees for us to pick that can eat and satiate us. So you'll realize that all these scary stories you've created in your mind about reality are false. If the world was that bad, you wouldn't exist. The world is very nice and not hostile. And so when you actually start to see the world, experience it for what it truly is, it becomes much easier and much more joyful. Now, you would wonder, well, why do I have all these negative thoughts? And that's because evolution created that ego as a survival mechanism. And it created it in a more hostile environment, in situations that we were not used to as modern humans. Back then, we didn't have cars, we didn't have airplanes. You were in the same little area for most of your entire life. And whenever you left that area, you should be really nervous and scared and filled with anxiety, because you don't know if there's an alligator in this water you're not used to, a tiger. And the thing is, in this modern world, we're always going to new environments, having new experiences. Any meaningful thing you want to have in life is going to be new and have a lot of changes with it. And the mind is using this 100,000-year-old mechanism telling you, wait, this is something you're not used to. You're not comfortable with this. And so it's going to fill your mind with a bunch of scary images and a bunch of scary thoughts. And so if you don't learn how to untangle from that, you'll never be happy. Now, in the last lecture, we learned how to defuse from thoughts. And if you didn't see that, you should watch the prior video, because a lot of what I'm saying may not make sense. But right now we're going to skip to scary pictures. There's a story in the Happiness Trap of a young lawyer who got a disease that could possibly go away, or it could, over time, degenerate her nerves to the point of complete disability. And she just kept having these images of herself in a wheelchair, and she couldn't get over it. So she went to her therapist, and he gave her some techniques to get over scary pictures. And here's some of them. Think of a scary picture in your own life that you have. You failing at something, anything that comes in your mind, a scary picture, and put it in there. And we're gonna go for about 30 seconds on each one of these. And what'll happen is, as you do these exercises, you'll disengage and realize that these scary thoughts and these scary pictures in your mind are just made up stories that one part of your mind is designed to constantly make, but that doesn't make them true. So the first one is, think of a television screen and put that picture on it. Speed that picture up. Now slow that picture down to a ridiculously slow speed. Try to change the color to...
You guys have a vehicle here?
Yep.
We're going to be closing the vehicle.
Okay, we'll get right out of there. Thanks, man. How many minutes do we have, like right now?
Well, sir, I'm trying to shoot everybody else, so you got at least 5 minutes time.
Thanks, man. So, as you see, the beach time's over, so we're gonna speed up through our exercises. We'll do this one with you. So, change that image to being black and white now. Whatever normally scares you. Now, change that image in your mind to being ridiculously bright colors. Pink, orange, green, lime green, yellow. And what you'll see is there's tons of other things you can do. Try adding a subtitle to it on the television screen, such as the failure story. The story you repeatedly tell yourself, whatever it is. Let's say it's that I'm a failure. And then even try making it humorous, like Homer Simpson, done it again. Okay, you can put a music soundtrack to it. You can shift locations. So you can have this image on a t-shirt. You can have this image on a banner on an airplane as it flies through the sky. Long story short, there's a bunch of exercises, and I'll add more videos showing a lot more in depth, and you do these exercises at home over long periods of time, but try them. And you'll start to disengage from being completely obsessed with these pictures and thoughts in your mind. Now, think of your thoughts in your mind as demons on a boat. If you're on the top of a boat, you may think that you want to go to the shore, but you made a deal with a bunch of scary demons in the bottom of the boat. And that's that as long as you don't head towards the shore, they'll stay down there. And those are your thoughts. That's whenever you're in a comfortable zone in your life, your demons will stay away from you. But if you want to change an environment, again, because that used to be very hazardous in our pre-evolutionary history, if you attempt to do that, then they will come out from there, they will scare you, they will scream, they will yell, they will grimace. But if you realize over time that these demons can't hurt you, they're just images, you can veer towards that shore. And that's what your thoughts are. Your thoughts, when you completely fuse with them and attach to them, whatever you're thinking, your heart will start to race. You'll be reading a newspaper or a scary story, your heart will race, your flesh will actually get sweaty. You're actually thinking that these are real things, but these are just images in your head. And you're pre-designed to have negative images 80% of the time, especially in new environments. So you have to realize that these are just images. And you have to have the courage to spin the boat towards the shore. Now, emotions arise just like storms in the mind throughout the day. You're always experiencing something. You're happy, you're sad, you're angry. Now, over time, you can see that an emotion actually starts in the body before it gets to the mind. And in the body, the emotion's not that scary, but you probably never observed what it feels like. And by learning to experience the emotion physically in your body and stopping it from getting to the mind instead of struggling against it, you'll realize that you can save yourself from a lot of emotional turmoil. It's not that scary as a physical feeling. Once it gets into your mind and your mind starts giving it a bunch of stories, it becomes a lot worse. So when you start to have an emotion, what you should do is you should recognize, I'm having an emotion, anger, depression, fear, and you should feel it in your body. And then over time, you should do some of these body exercises to do that. So try just right now for 10 seconds, noticing what your feet feel like. Notice the position that your legs are in. Notice the position and curvature of your spine. Notice the rhythm, speed, and depth of your breathing. Notice the position of your arms. And now scan from the very top of your head and feel any negative emotions that you're feeling, any tightness, any tension. And now do the same scan, but look for positive feelings from the top of your head to the bottom. Now that you've had the ability to get in touch with your body and what it feels like, you can do those body scan exercises throughout your days to get more in touch with your body and sensations. But whenever you're having an emotion and you realize you're caught up in your emotion, instead of struggling against it, because that's like being in quicksand, the more you fight, you'll just get drowned in it. Really what you're supposed to do in quicksand is just lay and float until help comes. So you need to give your emotions the space to let themselves kill out. It's called expansion instead of struggle. If you struggle against them, they never leave. It's like throwing fuel on a fire. The more you think about it, your thoughts are getting carried away. But if you give it enough space, you'll actually let the fire burn out. So first, the 4 steps to expansion are: 1, observing. Observe the emotion arise in your body and what does it feel like. Secondly, breathe in deep and calmingly into and around whatever that location is. And then thirdly, create space. Imagine when you're breathing in, you're creating space around that space for your emotion to exist in. And then fourth, accept it. Just accept whatever that sensation is and let it be there until it's done, and really observe it. And if you have any thoughts come up to your mind about it, just say, "Thank you, mind," and then go back to it. Focus back on the sensation. And if you don't let yourself get hooked into thoughts about that emotion, it will slowly but surely leave. So there's one last thing which is appropriate being on a surfboard, and that's a concept that was invented in the 80s by psychologists called urge surfing. So it's the same steps we've learned, but when you have an uncontrollable urge, you know, a drug addiction, the addiction to sex, whatever it is, whatever urge, and some urges are good. Maybe you have an urge to do a lot of work, and if that's good, go do it. So whatever urge arises in your body, you first ask yourself, by doing this activity, does it fit my values, and will it put my life in a better spot that I want to be in? If the answer is yes, follow the urge. If it's not, don't try to fight the urge, because like a wave, you'll see in the ocean, a wave will rise slowly, get to a crest, and then slowly die out. However, if it hits a beach, or if it hits something else, like your surfboard, if it has something to impact with, it can cause destruction. And that's a lot of time urges, we try to resist them. And by resisting, you don't give it space, and it just crashes. So again, do your body scan. What does your urge feel like? Where is it located? What's it like to have this urge or this desire? Observe it. Be curious. Then breathe in, creating space around it, just like before. And then watch it, acknowledge it, accept it, is the third step, of course, like before. And then fourth, the only thing that's different is treat it like a wave. Try to see, is the urge at a 1 or is it at a 10? Is it at a 2, 3, or 4? Constantly go back to the urge and ask yourself that. Treat it like a wave. Is it at its crest? Is it falling? Is it rising? Become like a scientist. And you can ride that wave out instead of engaging in that urge, and then you can go do what activity is actually positive for your life. So sorry, that was a little disruptive. That was a lot of craziness in a public beach. A couple of my note cards fell into the water, so I apologize about that. But I hope there's some good tips for you to have a happier life. And of course, every Sunday at 7, we'll be back.